It is the hottest afternoon of the year. The air conditioner has been grinding away since noon, and the air drifting out of the vents is somehow warmer than the room you are standing in. So you go down to the unit, or out back to the condenser, and there it is. A thick collar of ice wrapped around the copper line, or the whole indoor coil turned into one solid white block. Standing there sweating, you would swear the thing just died on you, and it almost certainly has not. That ice is a symptom, not a death sentence, and 9 times out of 10 it is pointing at something cheap. But there is one move you have to make in the next couple of minutes before anything else, because it is the line between a $20 fix and a repair that runs into the thousands. You shut the whole system down. I will explain exactly why in a second, and then we will go through every reason a coil ices over, from the free 5-minute checks down to the ones that need a tech. And if you have already swapped the filter and it froze right back up on you, hang on, because that refreeze is the single most useful clue in this whole thing, and I will show you how to read it near the end. Here is the whole problem in one picture. That coil is supposed to sit right around 38 degrees when everything is working right. Ice only forms when it drops below 32 and starts freezing the moisture out of the air passing over it. And a coil only gets that cold for 2 reasons. Either it is being starved of the warm air that normally keeps it above freezing, or the refrigerant pressure inside it has dropped too low. Airflow is the common one by a wide margin, and that is good news because the airflow problems are the cheap ones. One quick aside before we go further. If this is a heat pump in the dead of winter and it is the outdoor unit wearing the ice, that is usually just the normal defrost cycle doing its job, and it is a different video. What we are talking about here is your air conditioner icing up while you are trying to cool the house in the heat. So the very first thing you do is shut the whole system off, not just nudge the thermostat down a couple degrees. Then set the thermostat fan to the on position instead of auto. With the cooling shut down but the blower still spinning, you have basically turned your air handler into a slow hair dryer, melting the ice off with nothing but the warm air already inside the house. Now why does the off part matter so much? When I went digging through the HVAC forums and the trade write-ups on this, one warning kept coming back from the techs, and it surprised me how expensive the mistake actually is. When that coil is packed in ice, the refrigerant moving through it cannot do its job. It is supposed to boil from a liquid into a gas inside the coil, but with no warm air reaching it, some of that refrigerant stays liquid, and cold liquid slides back down the line into the compressor. A compressor is built to squeeze gas, not liquid. Liquid will not compress, so when a slug of it slams into those valves and connecting rods, parts bend and snap. The techs call it floodback, or slugging, and a compressor that has been slugged almost always gets replaced, not repaired. The compressor is the most expensive single part in the whole system. So every extra minute you let a frozen unit run, you are betting the cheapest repair there is against the priciest one. Oh, you will see the stories if you go looking. Somebody keeps the unit running because they figure it will sort itself out. The whole outdoor unit swells into a solid block of ice, and by the time a tech gets there, the compressor is already cooked. A dirty filter that should have been a 10-minute job became a $2,000 afternoon. Thawing takes a while, so settle in. With the fan running, most coils clear in 1 to 4 hours. Without it, you are looking at 6 to 8. And a really heavy block can take most of a day. Lay some towels down before you walk away too. That meltwater does not politely trickle into the drain pan. It runs down the sides of the furnace or the air handler and soaks a carpet or spreads across a basement floor, which is a lovely thing to be mopping up at 10 at night. And do not attack the ice with a screwdriver or a knife to hurry it along. The coil is thin, soft metal, and a punctured coil is a refrigerant leak you just created for yourself. Same reason you skip the hairdryer on high heat or a pot of hot water over it. That kind of thermal shock can crack the metal. Let it melt on its own with the fan pushing air because slow is the entire point. Once it is fully thawed and dry, you go hunting for why it iced up, and you start with the filter because it is both the easiest thing to check and the thing that is actually wrong most of the time. Pull your air filter out and hold it up toward a bright window. If barely any daylight makes it through, that clogged filter is very likely your entire problem right there in your hand. A plugged filter chokes off the air the coil needs to stay warm, and a starved coil freezes. And here is the trap people fall into. I just changed, it is not the same thing as it is clean. If you have been sanding drywall, painting, running a shop vac, or you have a couple of shedding dogs, a filter can plug solid in a few weeks. Techs love telling the one about pulling a filter dated years back, caked gray and stiff out of a frozen unit whose owner swore up and down it had nothing to do with the air conditioner. Just replace it and see if the freezing stops. If you do not have a spare on hand, knock it clean and run it while a new one ships. Next, walk the house and actually look at your vents. Are supply registers cranked shut in half the rooms? Is a couch, a rug, or a stack of moving boxes parked on top of a return grill? Block off enough of them and you starve that coil the same way a dirty filter does. There is a common mix-up worth naming here. A lot of folks spot that big return grill, decide it is blowing the wrong way, and cover it with cardboard. Returns do not have a shutoff. That grill is how the whole system breathes in, and taping over it is a reliable way to freeze the thing solid inside a day or two. Open every supply register and clear anything sitting on a return. If the filter is clean and the vents are open, look at the coil itself. When a filter has been dirty or missing for a while, dust rides right past it and cakes onto the underside of the coil, and that gray film acts like a permanent dirty filter you cannot just slide out and toss. Getting to it depends on your setup. Some coils sit in a cased box you can open with a few screws and vacuum out. Others are sealed inside a plenum with no easy access, and honestly, that is a point where plenty of people call somebody because forcing it risks kinking the refrigerant lines and turning a cleaning job into a repair. If you do vacuum it, go gentle, follow the fins, and try not to crush them over as you work. Now we get into the causes the basic videos skip right over, and this is where the I did everything and it still froze crowd usually lives. If the airflow is weak, even with a spotless filter, the blower motor itself may be the holdup. The one that fools people is a run capacitor on its way out. While it is failing but not fully dead, the motor keeps turning, only slower, and a slow blower moves just enough air to look normal and nowhere near enough to keep the coil above freezing. That is why a spinning fan does not let the blower off the hook. The part is cheap to replace, but there is stored voltage sitting inside it, even with the breaker off, so unless you know how to bleed one down first, this is a hand it to the tech job. There is one more airflow gremlin that catches people off guard. If your outdoor unit keeps running after the thermostat is already satisfied and the indoor blower has shut off, refrigerant keeps circulating with no air crossing the coil, and it freezes. Usually the culprit is a stuck contactor. When that relay welds its contacts together instead of releasing, the outdoor unit never gets told to stop. The contactor itself is another cheap part, but it is live 240 volt work, so know where your limit is on that one. Two more, and these cost nothing to fix. If your coil only ices up overnight or on mild days, look hard at your thermostat. Most systems have a floor they were built to run at, somewhere around 67 inside, and they are not really meant to run at all once the weather outdoors turns cool. Push the set point way down chasing faster relief, and you get the opposite of what you wanted. A coil driven so cold it frosts over, plus a house that never quite cools. Ease it back up to a normal setting and give the cooling a rest on a chilly evening. The other free one is sizing. An air conditioner that is too big for the house cools to the set point so fast it never runs long enough to wring the humidity out. And in muggy weather, that combination can frost a coil while the rooms still feel cold and clammy. That one is a pro conversation rather than a quick fix, but it is worth knowing if your unit has always behaved this way. That leaves low refrigerant as the last suspect, which is the one nearly everybody jumps to first. If the filter is clean, the coil is clean, the vents are open, the blower is strong, and the thing still freezes right back up, now you are on the refrigerant side. A low charge drops the pressure, the low pressure drops the temperature, and the coil sinks below freezing. This one is a genuine pro job. It takes proper gauges and an EPA license just to put a pound of the stuff into the system. But here is the payoff I really want you to hang on to, because it is the exact question the comment sections are still full of. You changed the filter, you thawed it out, and a day later it is a block of ice all over again. What that refreeze is telling you is that the filter was never the real cause. When a unit ices back over within about a day with a genuinely clean filter and open vents, you are looking at a leak or a hidden restriction, and no number of filter swaps is going to fix it. And this is where I get a little worked up because of what people get told next. What most folks never learn about refrigerant is that it is not a consumable. It is not fuel. It does not get burned off, and a healthy system holds the exact same charge for its entire life. So a unit that is genuinely low has a hole in it somewhere, full stop. An air conditioner that needs a recharge every single summer does not need refrigerant. It needs somebody to actually track down where it is escaping. Refilling a leaking system without sealing that hole is the single laziest call in this whole trade, and it quietly costs you more every year because refrigerant keeps climbing in price, especially the older R410A that stopped being made new back in 2025. You end up paying a little more each season to feed a slow leak nobody ever bothered to chase down. One last thing, and it is the reason a lot of you are watching this in the first place. Do not let anyone talk you into a whole new system off a frozen coil until the cheap stuff has actually been ruled out. It is a genuinely common story. A frozen unit, a company that takes one look and quotes $5,000 to $8,000 for a full replacement, and then a second opinion turns up a clogged filter, a filthy coil, or a worn-out capacitor. Sometimes the answer really is a dead compressor or a system on its last legs, and that is a fair conversation to have. But that belongs at the bottom of the list, not the top, and anyone whose very first move is a replacement quote is trying to sell you a system before anybody has diagnosed the actual fault. Nearly every frozen air conditioner is a cheap machine wearing an expensive-looking problem. The one reliable way to turn it into a truly expensive one is to keep running it while it is iced over. So the moment you spot frost, kill the power and give it the hours it needs to melt. Most of the time, the real fix waiting underneath is a filter, an open vent, or a dirty coil you can reach yourself. The filter, a replacement capacitor, and a wet-dry vacuum for a clogged drain line are down in the description if this turns out to be one you can handle on your own.